Good morning, Partho.
Good morning, Manu.
Welcome to India Education Show again.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back. This is January, and this is the type of period where many parents who have school going children are thinking either of putting their children into schools or perhaps shifting schools. So it's a pertinent time to examine the question, how do you select the right school for your child? A very important question in the minds of many parents. And especially in our experience, what we have seen is that parents have certain criteria in their mind, and they go about selecting schools based on those criteria. But then they may not be the right fundamentals to evaluate a school in the first place. An educator knows what it means to select the right school for a child. A parent may not know the answer to that question, yet they make those decisions based on perhaps not the complete knowledge. So we would love for you to talk about this subject and help parents out there understand what are the criteria on which to select the school for their child.
Which will, of course, depend on the parents.
That is perhaps the first counter
Yeah.
question in that sense
What
that
kind of parents are we talking about? So, my response would perhaps be a bit radical. Are you okay with that?
sure.
I feel, generally speaking, there are two kinds of parents. The kind of parents, or the kind of, there are actually two kind of people. So, one kind is people who keep the wheels of this world running. The great consumerist class, the corporate class, people whose aspiration is to have a good standard of living, earn good money, raise a good family, give all the comforts and luxuries of life to themselves and to their families. So this is I think, the standard social and economic aspiration most people are motivated by.
A tad bit utilitarian.
Yeah, utilitarian, consumerist kind of people. So the parents who come from this class would have an aspiration along this direction. So they would want a conventional, good, in India at least, a good English medium public school kind of a place, for the children. And within this class, there would be gradations, and you would have parents who would want their children to go to air-conditioned schools, for instance, or well-known schools. Nowadays, there's this fashion of corporate schools and the corporate houses opening their own schools.
Of course.
So some parents have a fascination for that kind of a thing, or which is really an extension of their own corporate fixations. So they impose that on schools as well. Whereas a larger number of parents would probably just want a good, modern, in India again, English medium education for the children. Now, there's the other kind of people who are what I call driven by an evolutionary need. These are people who, who've done it, and they've been there and done that kind of thing, who have fulfilled their basic aspirations. I mean, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy,
Hierarchy of
for
needs,
instance,
yes.
you would have these kinds of parents at the top of the hierarchy.
Self-actualization need.
Towards that end, yes. Fulfillment, self-actualization.
So you mean to say the basic needs of
Taken care of.
shelter and
Yes,
material
yes.
requirements and
not in a
financial
basic way.
security, they are
Yes,
met.
yes. I mean, I'm also talking about people who have made their money. They won't have those lower on the pyramid, the lower needs, lower hierarchy needs. So parents like that who probably who have become more conscious of their own education, how they have been educated and what has become of them, and because they are their own first-hand study of what education has done to them. And they're also simultaneously exposed to what's happening the world over. They know globally what's happening and what needs to be happening. Many of them themselves are entrepreneurs, businessmen, corporate leaders who would be recruiting people on a daily basis, and they would probably be more aware of how exactly education is contributing to all this,
Right.
or is not contributing to all this. So these people would be far better placed to make a more rational, a wiser, more conscious choice about their schools. So they wouldn't go for just the brand,
Right.
and they wouldn't go for the outer show. Whether it's air conditioned or not hardly makes a difference to them. In fact, there are many parents I know who don't want their children to go through air conditioned schools because they want them to, should be able to live in a country like India naturally. Not get vulnerable to all kinds of things. You can't take the heat, you can't take the cold, you can't take the rain.
Right.
So if we're talking about these parents, I call them the higher aspirational parents, parents with a higher, more evolutionary aspiration. Then they don't want their children to repeat what they have done or become.
Right.
They want the children to become more than what they have become. And when I say become more, I mean in terms of human consciousness, in terms of, let's say, emotional wisdom.
Living a fuller life, having the
living
foundations,
a fuller, wiser
or a
life,
integral
emotionally
life,
wiser beings.
a harmonious life.
Yeah, so not driven by the the ordinary run-of-the-day ambitions and aspirations. But, they want their children to be more than themselves. The next step in evolution.
Understood. So two
So
categories.
these parents, yes. So once we know that there are these two kinds of parents, two kinds of people, then we look at the evolutionary kind of parents who have a higher aspiration. And these are parents who will not choose a conventional school.
Right.
I know many amongst them who will not choose a school at all because they are now beginning to see with growing clarity that school is not the answer. And today we are in 2025. I mean, if we're talking about 2030, I would say 2030, 2035, between 2030 and 35, another 10 years at most. Most parents will not even go the school route.
Okay.
I mean, you can see there are so many young people who are not going to universities after schools.
Yeah.
That's the conventional wisdom. You finish school, you go to universities. But there are so many very young, brilliant people, bright young men and women who are choosing not to go to universities because they feel it's a waste of time and rather start earning right now. So what they want is more practical experience, practical wisdom,
Right.
practical skills than 3 years of degree-oriented university education.
So
So there's a growing number of such people.
now that you've laid out in front of us the two categories of education aspiration depending on the kind of family or the parents,
The kind of life you want for your children.
So, two categories. Now, if we were to pick the second category where we want evolutionary education for the child,
Yes.
where the basic needs and the financial insecurities are not there, and we're not looking to merely solve for usefulness of the child to the society. How well skilled can I make my child tomorrow so that he can fit into a so-called top-level corporate, right? So this is one way to go about it. And the other one is, well, let me do what best I can do for my child. What is the best, real, true education I can give to my child? So in this second category, the evolutionary parenting or evolutionary education, what would be the criteria? How would we go about? Imagine a family who's moved into a new city like Delhi, for example, or Chandigarh, for example, and they want evolutionary education.
So
What do
most
they do?
parents who want evolutionary education, I don't think will be moving into a city like Delhi. No, I'm serious about that.
Okay.
More and more, I feel the more conscious human beings, the more conscious parents will make this choice consciously in the future.
Right.
No parent would want to bring their children to a place like Delhi. I mean, you are seriously messing around with their health. How long do you think that it'll take for people to start realizing that in a practical way? Not for drawing room discussions, but in a serious, practical way that by the time my children are 30, 35, 40 years, they will not have the lung capacity of a normal adult, of a normal, healthy adult. So I mean that will be one criteria.
Right.
Where the school is established.
A clean
Why
a
would I
place
send,
where
if
you
I
can
had
breathe,
children, why would I send my children to a school in Delhi, for heaven's sake? I
where
would
even the
choose a
air
school
you
in the
breathe is
Himalayas.
polluted.
Yes, I
Yeah.
would choose a school which is set in, sylvan surroundings.
So healthy environment.
Healthy environment would be the first most important criterion.
Right.
But this is healthy environment externally speaking. There's also a healthy environment internally speaking.
Yes.
An internal healthy environment. Which means what? Which means the environment in which my child would grow up is not contaminated by old world things like competition. Competitiveness is an old world virus
Right.
infecting life everywhere, at every level of life. It's infected by this.
So do you think there shouldn't be
No,
competition?
competitive. Human spirit has outgrown competitiveness. That's primitive. The future world is not going to be competitive. It's going to be collaborative.
So how do you bring the best out in oneself if
Through collaboration and an internalized inherent need for excellence in what you do and what you are. Do you see that these are the aspirations of the education system itself. What does a school aspire for? For its own students? Does it aspire for excellence in being and in doing? Or does it just aspire for marks and degrees? Standing
Right.
first and standing second. Our children have stood first, second, third, and fourth in national exams and in public exams and this exam, that exam. So many of our children have gone to this company and so many of our... If that's the future, then it's a pathetic future.
in any case that can only solve for say 3 students in a class of 30? What happens to the remaining 27?
And those 3 students are moving headlong towards some kind of a disaster or the other in one way or the other in the years to come.
And this
Because
was
they're
the
going
old
into that
model.
pressure cooker environment.
Yeah. Whereas today we know that each child is unique, and how can we help each child
Yes.
become a self-actualized human being?
Yes, self-actualizing being. So when schools start talking that language, instead of the language of the board exams and grades and marks and corporate jobs, and those are the external parameters of what they call success in life. And schools are talking that language. Parents are talking that language. That's the only language most parents understand.
So a school which clearly demonstrates that each child is important to be nurtured.
Yet when schools start, just what you used just now, the phrase, have you heard schools using that phrase, self-actualization? I haven't. Have you heard, nowadays there are many schools that use the word excellence, become sort of a fashionable word. But they don't even understand what excellence is. For them, excellence is again getting high marks, which is not excellence, it's mediocrity. Only mediocre people get high marks or work for high marks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what is interesting is the moment you said competition versus excellence, pursuing excellence. Competing is external.
So competition-
excellence is internal.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we have to replace this whole idea of competitiveness with excellence and cooperativeness and collaboration. We are moving into an age of collaboration. The most successful businesses of tomorrow will be collaborative models,
Right.
not competitive.
So we've covered 2 points. One is the external environment has to be healthy, unpolluted.
Yes.
Number 2 is an environment where competition is not the word used or encouraged, but pursuit of excellence is.
Yes, I would go to the extent of saying where the idea of competitiveness is replaced by the idea of collaboration and attaining excellence in what you are and what you do. Again, this is language that schools don't use.
Yeah.
Here, the words reflect on the language. Excellence in what you are,
Yes.
and then excellence in what you do. In these two sentences, you have, I think, the whole of education.
The innate nature, the uniqueness of the human being that is a
excellence in what
student.
you are. What kind of a human being are you? What are your values? What values are you living? Not what are your values in a mental sense that, I believe in this value. You may believe in as many values as you want. Makes no difference. But what are the values you're living? Actually living day to day, moment to moment.
Yes.
So that is what excellence is about. The values that I have internalized and live, the aspirations that I have internalized and live for.
So how do we look for such qualities in a learning environment, a school? I mean, as a parent who's moved into a new city, how do I?
Hardly any school that exists today that offers this kind of a thing. And these are just two.
Yes, we are still
There are
long.
several more.
We're still into the discussion.
But
Yes.
even if at this point you ask the question, which is natural, that do we have schools that talk this language? No, frankly, no. Maybe a handful, but very few people would know of such schools. And the reason for that is this very simple law of demand and supply. You get what you want. So if parents, collectively speaking, do not want that kind of a conscious schooling, they will not get that kind of a school anywhere. What they will get is the mediocrity that exists today in the name of education.
Right.
So parents have to start talking a different language. They have to start asking for a different kind of education. The ask has to change. They have to start talking that they have to go to schools and says, do you believe in competitiveness? And school says, yes, we do. And parents say, sorry, not interested. And a growing number of parents start saying that do you offer something besides competitiveness, the competitive model? Who do you, when parents should go and start quizzing the school, they should interview school that what are your criteria for success? Define success to me as school, as owners and administrators of a school. Tell me, what do you think is success? And then listen carefully to what they say.
An ability
And
to
you'll get your
articulate
answer.
the ideology, the approach towards education,
This evolutionary approach.
evolutionary approach.
Yes. Which means these schools will have to be run by evolutionary people.
Yes.
It's very simple logic. And they have to be chosen by evolutionary people. So you see, parents with that aspiration will have to choose schools that are being run with people with that aspiration. Then you have children with that aspiration growing.
So this is an education philosophy, right? So let us say if we go and meet a school or go to things like websites, etc., the philosophy underpinning a school's approach to pedagogy is very important.
Yes, the philosophy, the vision, and you can the language. The language will tell you.
Yes.
The
How
language
deep
will be
and thorough.
radically different.
Right. Right. And in terms of other things that parents typically look for, things like infrastructure, facilities, A, and B, the teachers, right? So how do you understand and evaluate a school on these
I
criteria?
will say teachers first.
Of course.
If you have really good teachers of our kind, what I'm talking about, aspiration is
Yes.
for growth of consciousness. Then the most important thing is teachers, the make or break. If you have teachers of that kind, who needs infrastructure? You don't even need classrooms for that. And again, I'm telling you, 5 to 10 years from now, with AI and multimedia learning coming the way it's coming in, you will not need infrastructure. I don't see many people going to schools in 10 years from now. You won't need to go to a school.
Yeah, who knows with these AI
All children
teaching
will need
assistants?
is a playground to go to, or places where they can go and learn how to dance or do theater. You know, what children will need from what we call schools today will be social interaction, will be skills like theater, music, dance. No one in the coming generations will go to school for learning academics.
That'll
Because
become
who-
like
I mean,
a process.
the way you can learn academics through AI and multimedia generated learning content is way beyond what any human teacher can do.
So knowledge per se, the transmission of knowledge, you think human beings' role will get
It's already getting
reduced?
over. Some of the best students, and I have been an educator for many years. And this trend I started noticing many years before we started talking the language of AI and multimedia learning. I could see that the more intelligent students were not relying on classes and teachers for their learning. They were doing their own learning, they were discovering the internet. Those were the days when the internet was really coming into the learning spaces of the child. When the child was beginning to interact so dynamically and creatively with the internet, learning how to use multimedia. And now I can see children doing the same thing with AI.
But don't you think the role of a facilitator would stay?
How? In what aspects? Yes, it will, but in what aspect?
As the child's intellect expands, year on year, teaching the child to ask the right questions,
So no.
even if internet or AI is available.
So no, Manu. I think children will learn to ask the right questions through their learning content itself.
Okay.
We will be designing AI of that kind, which will ask you the right questions, which will teach you how to ask the right questions. And here, right questions is not academic, as teachers in schools would teach you. These are content-driven questions.
Right.
These are questions that penetrate the content. Like we used to talk in the kind of schooling I would do with my children, I would teach them how to ask why 5 times.
Five
That was
times.
my mantra with teachers, in teachers' education with teachers, in classroom with students. My mantra was ask why 5 times.
Why 5 times?
The ball falls, why?
Right.
Gravity, why? Now to answer the second why, it falls because of gravity, you have to understand gravity now.
Yes.
So you'll say, gravity is a force that draws and attracts objects to itself. Why? Now you'll go into the physics of gravity. Probably from Newtonian, you'll come to relativistic understanding of gravity. You will start talking about space-time structure. You'll start talking about space-time curvatures to explain gravity. Why? Why that? Now you're going into deep territory. To understand, to ask why and answer it the 4th time, you need to go deep down into your subject matter. And then why? 5th time. And that 5th why will take you to the Nobel Prize category.
That's
But
very
there,
interesting.
everything in you is challenged.
Yes.
So my mantra with my students was ask why 5 times and don't let go till you have the answer. So maybe all students will not be able to go to the 5th why, but by the time they get to the 3rd why, they have mastered the subject.
Yes, they have indeed.
So which teacher will do that? Which teacher, when I used to work with teachers in teacher training, they wouldn't go beyond the 2nd why. Teachers of physics wouldn't go beyond the 2nd why.
It's very superficial then.
Yes. So this kind of education we need to throw out the window. We have lived with this nonsense long enough. We need to start, as parents, we need to start saying the emperor is wearing no clothes. Sorry. The education and schooling you're giving to our children is nonsense. And we are paying money. We are paying our hard-earned money for this nonsense. I tell parents, will you spend this kind of money on buying a car? Or a house or investing somewhere? You won't. You'll think 10 times before it. And look the kind of money you're throwing away on a useless education that the schools are giving to your children. They are hoodwinking you, deceiving you on a daily basis, and you guys are getting deceived. actually you don't even deserve schools for your
So
children.
what do you mean useless education? Just
What are
tell
they
us
doing?
the
What are they doing to you? Tell me one brilliant student who has come out last so many years of our schooling system.
well, education as we understand it, there's a curriculum which comes from the National Curriculum Framework.
And
There are
wait,
teachers
that
trained in
curriculum
them.
itself is flawed,
Let
deeply
me
flawed.
just allow me to just complete the image of a typical school in the mind of a typical educated parent, and then you can tell us why that is
Right.
not the right
Let's play the game.
understanding. A good school is one with, if I'm a parent and I go to a good school, it has amazing infrastructure, because as a parent I can look at it, I can feel it, I can understand
I
it.
give you that.
Right.
First point, I give
so
you that.
typically as a parent I would say, oh, amazing infrastructure, facilities for everything, air conditioned, large playgrounds, number one. Number two, I would go and ask about whether there are a lot of activities in the school, because when I ask the question, are there a lot of activities in the
No,
school?
sorry to interrupt you. Are you talking about the first kind of parents?
I'm just telling
That
you
category
about
that
the
we
majority of the parents, and including, I mean, I wouldn't even judge anybody. I would say even myself a few years ago. I mean, I really want to go here so that you can tell us why this is wrong,
Yes, let's do this. Okay.
right? So the second category is I am looking for an activity-based school. Now that is, and that's it. So I wouldn't be asking questions about what is your philosophy, why is it the philosophy, or competition versus excellence, etc. And number three is that I am looking for overall development of my child. Will you teach my child, will you teach him in a manner that there is personality development, there are things like theater and sports, etc. So these are the three typical requirements a
Yeah,
parent today
so
has.
shall we take it up one
Can
at
you
a
tell
time?
us why this is the wrong way to look
First,
for a
let's take
school?
it up one. First, infrastructure, I
Yes.
don't have much to say about it.
Okay.
It's okay. I mean, it's whether it's there or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, I find learning far better sitting in a beautiful forest under a hut and learning from a teacher of that kind. But then you'll say that I'm going back in time, nostalgia, which is not so. The future schooling will be like that. Take it from me. However, let go of that. Infrastructure, fine. Second
Right.
point was
Activities.
activities. What activities are we talking about here? Have parents asked that question? What are these activities? A, most important question, what kind of activities do children really need? Because the kind of activities most schools give are very superficial activities and very time limited. This is the time for this activity, then for this, And third, they have nothing to do with what the child really A wants and B needs. So what activities are we talking about? I find parents and teachers are just crowding up the child's day with their so-called fancy activities.
Right. Okay.
Our kind of education, integral education that we talk about, you and I, Manu, activity is simply being active. A child has to be naturally active. And a child is naturally active. You see a child, I mean, will you see the child sitting down and watching TV or playing with a iPad or the phone? You don't see a natural child doing that. It's only the kind of children we have made today, unhealthy, unnatural children who do that. A natural child will want to climb trees, jump into water, play with animals, roll in the mud. These are natural activities of children. That is how the child's body becomes healthy and the immunity becomes strong. Today's children have very weak immunities. Their bodies are not strong enough. They don't digest well. They don't breathe well. So what are your activities doing, I
So
would like
types
to
of
ask?
activities, how
I
are
would
they?
like to ask one single activity of a single school that's doing any good to any children. I've challenged schools. I've challenged school after school. Prove it to me. Demonstrate. I'm an educator here. I'm not a normal parent. I'm not an ordinary parent. I'm not even a parent for that matter. I'm an educator. Demonstrate it to me that this activity is helping this child in this way. Trust me, to date, no one has been able to do that.
Right.
You want a holistic, integral development of the body? Let the child play. Let the child breathe clean air. In most cities today, you can't even breathe clean air. What activities are we talking about? Oh, we teach, piano. Piano? Hello? For young children. Unless the child is that, he or she had that inclination to music, then you don't need to teach piano. You just put a piano there, the child will learn how to play. That's, again, another story. So I don't think much of activities. It's a subject that requires in-depth discussion. I'm not rejecting activities.
I understand. It is the
What I'm
depth
saying is
behind it, the
activities need
thought
to be
behind it,
understood in the proper
the
context.
connection to the education philosophy, if there is one behind
and
the
to
school.
integral growth of a child. These things neither teachers nor parents understand. They just go on choosing activities because they believe keeping the child busy throughout the day is good. It's not.
Of course. And the third one was that we are looking for overall development of the child.
So
or
I have
holistic
asked
development.
so many people this, Manu, please explain to me overall development. Explain to me overall development. What does that mean?
He should have a good personality.
Hey, wait,
you
personality. What does that mean, personality? What would you define a good personality to be in a child? And the questions I'm asking you, Manu, I've asked schools, school managements, principals, parents in session after session of.
I mean, typical answers are confidence, etiquettes, presence.
Etiquettes be damned. Children don't need to learn etiquette. Children need to learn, and I have to use the word learn, it's become so artificial these days. They have to learn how to be natural. In our society, they actually have to learn how to be natural. Children are meant to be natural. What etiquette are we talking about here? Just be natural.
Wishing people.
You don't need to wish people.
Having
you need
the proper
a child
posture.
smiles. If a child likes a person, he or she will smile. He will. I know children who will come and jump onto my back and just catch me by the hand and pull me out. Come, I'll show you something. That, for me, is a child greeting me. I don't want a child sitting there with a pasted smile on her face and say, "Good evening, uncle." Sorry, I don't want that. That's artificial. That has no soul in it. Children don't need to learn etiquette or manners. They need to be natural.
Right.
Personality, something that develops over the years. Personality is the way a person expresses his or her being, his or her values, attitudes, his or her worldview, what the person has learned, assimilated through his or her experiences and is now living that. That is what makes a personality. What kind of personality are you going to give to a child who's 5 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old? He or she is in the process of it's developing a character. His or her attitudes, values, they have to be developed. You can't give attitudes and values to children like that. Here, take this attitude or value and you have a great personality. No, sorry, don't have a great person. You don't have a personality at all. It's a personality that has been artificially created for you by grown-ups. That's not your personality. It's a put-on personality. You've learned how to pretend to be something that you're not and you can never be and you never would want to be. So personality development, I don't care about it.
Right.
What are the other things about overall development? People say, no, I want my children to develop intellectually. Show me how many children are truly developed intellectually. For that matter, show me adults who are developed intellectually. You'll end up showing me well-informed people. They carry
Just
a
the
lot of
5
information.
whys. I'm not sure even as adults we have ever skimmed through the second or the third why.
Yes, absolutely.
So what
Manu.
type of intellectual
we just carry a lot
development?
of information that my little iPhone can do now. If I have a modern smartphone, I don't need to carry that kind of information in my head. I will use my head for other worthier things in evolution, not carry information that my phone can give me. So besides being well-informed and having smart facts, what intellectual development do we have? We don't. So what is overall development? Emotional development? Sorry, we have not developed emotionally. Emotionally, most of us, including adults, most adults I know, we are still immature. still emotionally reacting the way we would do when we were as teenagers, as kids. Emotional, forget about emotional intelligence. I mean, the emotional awareness is not there. So emotional awareness, then intelligence, then wisdom. So overall development, it doesn't exist.
So that means that we are, as parents, woefully underinformed as to what even to look for.
Yes,
when
not just underinformed, Manu. Parents are woefully deceived. I am using that word advisedly. Parents are woefully deceived because they don't have the time to go into the depths of education, unfortunately. I mean, if I ask you to invest a few lakhs of rupees in my investment firm, you're going to take time to do that, right or wrong. You're going to do your homework.
Yes.
You're going to get into the depths of it before you part with that kind of money. But your child's education, you don't know a damn all. You're going by what people are telling you. And that's why I say parents are deceived, woefully deceived.
Yeah. So then help us in the journey. So when we look at a school, as you mentioned, excellence versus competition, etc., we should be able to consider a school, go through, look for its education philosophy, look for what the founders or the founding group is aspiring for.
And why they have set up the school. Ask them that. Find out whose school is it. Does it belong to a real estate developer? Does it belong to a politician? Does it belong to a corporate group? If yes to any of these, forget that school. Because the foundation is wrong. The seeding is wrong. Because they have set up the schools for making money. Now, any school that has been set up for making money is not going to talk our language. Sorry. They will not. Because that doesn't bring in money. I don't have anything personal against any of these classes of people. That I also know of real estate developers who are truly wise and intelligent people. Few, very few, but there are. There are politicians who really understand and know education. Few, but there are. But these are the politicians and real estate people and corporate leaders who don't end up having schools, unfortunately. So first, you were asking about the criteria for school. Who owns the school?
Right.
Who are the stakeholders and stockholders of that school? Find that out first. You'll get your answers. A school has to be set up by an educator. Now, you may be a business person, you may be a corporate leader, you may be a real estate developer, you may be a politician, but are you also an educationist? In other words, do you understand education? Do you feel for education? If yes, it doesn't matter what you do to earn your living. You're setting up a school. You're using your money for a good cause.
Right.
But that's not what people do.
And then secondly, let us say there is an educator who has set up a school.
A person
Now-
with when we say educator,
person
I
who
don't
feels
want,
for education.
who has a sense of education, who feels for education.
Yes.
You don't have to be a professional educator. That's what.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
And now, how do we examine the education philosophy, right? Because you mentioned to us, go beyond infrastructure, go
Yes,
beyond
yes.
your own shallow understanding of what education should be. Ask some real questions. Ask about who set up the school. What is the education philosophy?
Yeah.
Because
The philosophy here again, the language. We have to be careful about this. When you ask people about the philosophy, they'll give you 100,000 words on philosophy on their website and 10,000 words inscribed on their walls. All that means nothing. Listen carefully to the language. If you hear one of them telling you that, it doesn't matter if our children score marks or not. I want my children to play and be happy. The moment you hear that language, you know you've got it. That's the school you want.
happy children.
People who are speaking that I just want my kids to be happy. If the principal says I want my children to be happy and running around and full of life and vitality and healthy people who can climb trees and look at our infrastructure. I want a principal who says, look there, look at all the trees. See, look at the sand pits there. Look at all this natural gymnasium equipment we have built. See what our child, and half the day our children spend over there playing, climbing trees, jumping into pools of water, playing with sandpits, and look, all the animals we have. That is infrastructure for education. You have a school like that, I'll pay anything to have my child in that school. And then you come to classrooms. Show me your classroom. Then you show them, hey, this doesn't look like a classroom. It's so colorful. It's so joyful. Where are the desks? Where is this? No, we don't use all that. Our children come here and play and then they learn. This is how they learn. What do they learn? What they want to learn. You don't have a curriculum? No. Our child is our curriculum. The child is the living curriculum. At this age, what does the child need to learn? Actually, children have need for cognitive development at various stages. And as an educator, as integral educators, we have done enormous work on this. We have a whole natural curriculum built on what a child at this given stage and age, what kind of cognitive development, emotional development, spiritual development does a child need? And how to create an environment in which the child gets those inputs. That is our curriculum. So when you hear a school talk that language, then you know that you got it. Right. This is the school you want.
Right. Sure. So, how to summarize then? If you were to make a list of, say, 4 to 5 areas that we've covered, which the parent should explore further. So, in conclusion, what would that list look like?
To summarize it in a few words, I would say a parent should look for schools that have been set up and are being run by people driven by a higher understanding and vision of life itself.
That's beautiful, yeah.
And people who have given serious thought and consciousness to building up what you call the infrastructure of the school. We don't want cement structures of corporate structures, little classrooms instead of little cubicles, and we don't want things like that. We want a space where children can be expansive, where they can breathe easy and play. That would be the other thing. And then we want teachers who love children, who are not doing a job, who are not there because they have to spend some time of the day or they are waiting for some big break in their lives, and just whiling away their time in education. But people who have an undying passion for education. Teachers who probably wouldn't even consider themselves teachers. They would say that, hey, what, I love learning and I love teaching what I learn. I love being with kids because kids learn so much. I love being with learning individuals whose whole existence is about learning. So when you have teachers speaking that language, yeah. So I would say these 2 or 3 things, and that's it.
Right. And the third one was the education philosophy, right?
Yeah, but philosophy as lived, not philosophy as put into words. That frightens me. The kind of philosophies most schools talk about, and I know it's all hollow.
Yeah.
They're just deceiving you. And they now have learned to use the right words and phrases to deceive you even further.
What are the 3 or 4 key phrases which we must find in a good school's education philosophy?
A really good school may not even use these phrases. Actually, they wouldn't. Some 3 or 4 schools in India that I know, the schools are like that. They don't have any word written anywhere on any wall. Their websites also don't reflect those words. Their website is designed in such a way that you open the website and say, hey, this is different. What am I looking at? Where are the things that schools talk about? Nothing. But totally different thing. The website is your first experience that this is something different. Then they go to their school. There is no brochures and handouts and offices, and it looks like when you enter a school, it looks like you entered a hospital or something. Everything's so quiet and clinical and clean, and you have to wait for the principal. Oh my God. You enter the school and it's like a play field. Everyone is playing and enjoying, and you don't even know you're talking to a person moving along and showing things, and you realize this person is the principal or the headmaster or the headmistress. and they wouldn't even call themselves that. The designations wouldn't exist. So when you really go to a school like that, and right now, even as I'm telling you, Manu, I'm thinking of 3 or 4 schools in India, which they don't look like schools, they don't behave like schools,
Right.
they don't use any of those words or phrases. Yet you spend half an hour in that school and you come out refreshed and rejuvenated, and you come out telling your spouse or your whoever that what, I want my kid to be here. That is the kind of school we're talking about.
Right. On that note, Pathu, thank you for your time. A
You're
lot of food for thought for us.
And excuse my the radicalness, but please understand that's the
No,
only way to put.
we are here to get the radical perspective, because sometimes it takes a radical perspective to shake one out of
So thank you
misunderstandings.
for that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.